Hello and welcome to the highlights of the Euronews event Farmers' Horizon, Sustainability, Innovation and the Toolbox, happening more or less 1 year after the farmers' protest all across Europe. And we tried to take stock of the response to the farmers' requests from lawmakers and policymakers and stakeholders, starting with an interview with the EU Agriculture Commissioner Christophe Hansen. Let's see what he said. Can you explain why this simplification approach matter to you?
Well, first of all, I think you mentioned it before. We had last year the farmers taking it to the streets as well here next to the Parlement because they had a lot of things that were not going wrong in a very tense geopolitical situation. So we have as well had a study where we asked more than 27,000 farmers to give us feedback what is bothering them in this current common agriculture policy. But as well, we got suggestions from the member states, and this is what we worked with. And I have to say, what we got from the farmers, it's not just the common agriculture policy. There's as well environmental legislation, health and sanitary legislation, often as well national or regional legislation. So I think everybody needs to contribute to cut down this bureaucracy. We have simplified for the very small farms so that we alleviate burden for them, because otherwise they will not even participate correctly in the system. So we simplified for organic producers mainly as well, because they are on some points green by definition. So some of the conditionality, they fulfill it anyhow, so it doesn't make sense that they declare on two sides.
So there was also an attempt to simplify this overlapping.
Exactly, to cut down the overlaps without reducing the ambitions. I think that is very important.
We're talking about changes. Don't you think that maybe farmers could be a bit lost if you changing rules so many times?
Well, we don't necessarily change the rules in here. I think that is very clear. But for example, let's take a grassland, for example, because currently, if the grassland is there for more than 5 years, it will become permanent grassland. And then it will be a devaluation of this farmland because they can't use it in arable land again. What the farmers are doing then after 4 years and something, they are plowing around in order to preserve this status. And now we're extending this to 7 years. This makes, in a crop rotation agronomic point of view, makes way more sense. And for me, it is more valuable if the grass stays for 7 years than if it stays only for 5 years. So there's even an environmental progress to be seen there as well.
But it's true that some critics say that the EU may be backtracking from the green commitment, although the Commission position is different, because you're saying that it's not like this. Can you explain this?
Well, when we go, for example, to wetlands and peatlands, we are just saying if there is national legislation in place that has the same effect of protecting wetland and peatland, well, then this overlap is not necessary.
There's also much more than that in the proposal. There's also something on digitalization, competitiveness.
Risk management, very important.
Risk management, indeed.
Well, I think it is very important that we reduce as well the stress for our farmers, because currently it depends on the member state. They are facing 5, 6, 7 controls in a year.
Yeah.
And that is causing a huge stress to our farmers, and therefore we want as well to reduce these controls. We want to reduce this to 1 control per year. We are still speaking about public money, so there needs to be control. But on the other hand, we have to reduce this, and that is why we are introducing this digital solutions as well. I would even go a step further, because we are speaking about a digital wallet for companies in general, where you have all your administrative stuff in, and the administration can go and pick it there. And I think member states are sometimes a little bit reluctant because they say farmers are not able to deal with that. And I say, come on, farmers are multi-talents because they need to have the financial skills, chemical skills, biological skills, entrepreneurial skills. Let's not take them for more stupid. They are perfectly fine to use these digital tools. So it's sometimes rather the administrations that don't want to change their systems. And I think that is something, the way we need to go forward, to simplify and give the tools into the hands. Farmers will know, because they deal with so many things, precision farming, GPS, etc. So they can use this as well perfectly fine.
So the circle is not fully yet closed, but it's starting to come together. And we discussed about these topics also with the stakeholders that joined us in the panel after the interview. where we discussed, for instance, about how this new simplification package is affecting the sustainability path or the green ambition of the European Union. So I'm going to start from Elli, a reaction from this simplification package.
Per se, the simplification exercise is viewed as positive by our community. It's a key request. It's a long-standing request. I believe we saw it also as one of the key asks during the protests, a very legitimate request. There is this, they are overwhelmed with administrative burden. They are overwhelmed with legislations, policies not talking to each other. One of our vice presidents in the previous term, he explained in an opinion piece very well and in detail, he's a breeder, how implementing the IED directive, the nature restoration and the deforestation was completely nonsense since his holding because the policies were not coherent. So before introducing a bright idea, we should make a reality check about how this idea is going to be implemented on the ground, to be sure, to be certain as much as we can. And this is not the case at present.
I completely agree that we need the Commission to be on the grounds more to explain policies. So, and now going into the actual simplification package. So Commissioner Hansen mentioned a couple of times permanent grassland. On this we agree. It's actually a positive change because it can let farmers have their prairies for longer. However, he also did not mention that now farmers are able to mow their permanent grassland at a higher rate than they did before. Before it was 5% compared to the reference year in 2018, now it's 10. So for us, there is a clear backtracking. So we are very happy with simplification. We think it's a valid agenda to have, but it cannot be deregulation.
Jens, what's your main take on this simplification?
Look, he said right at the beginning, we need to, I made a note here, we need to make life easier, we need to have fun back at farmers, and that's basically the core to it. How do we make farming again an exciting profession for long-term sustainable livelihood? So from my point of view, the glass is probably more half full.
How do you see this shift from green to clean that we're seeing in this commission, not just in terms of environmental aspect or climate change, but also when it comes to biodiversity loss?
We need to break the stigma where we cannot farm sustainably and be competitive. I think that's something we really need to keep in mind, and that profitability and sustainability, environmental sustainability, are not antagonists. They've never been. The main focus when it comes to agriculture has been on food production. It made sense after the war. That was why the Common Agricultural Policy was created. We live in a different world. We're producing a lot of food, we're exporting a lot of food, but we also have a triple crisis. A crisis in pollution, we have a crisis in biodiversity and nature loss, and we have a crisis in climate change, with farmers being, as you said, the first impacted. So if farmers want to be able to farm in 20, 30, 40 years, the question of environment, the question of making sure we are not polluting our soils, that we're not degrading our soils, needs to be at the forefront of everyone's minds, because we need farmers to be profitable and to produce food in 2040, 2050.
I fully agree 100% with what you said about the economic and the environmental pillar of sustainability not being competitive. There are ways to do it that are much more meaningful and impactful in achieving this balance on behalf of the farming community than setting targets and forcing regulation. I mean, the issue has never been doing something against the environment. And then we have to think in a very simple way. How can a farmer engage in the transition if he is not profitable, if he's not doing his work, which is producing? This is the work of the farmer, producing and being on the market. So that's why we need, before thinking of anything else, to ensure productivity, profitability, and then the path towards the transition is secure only when we provide farmers with enough adequate solutions in terms of knowledge and innovation.
Elli, just adding on what you're saying and fully agreeing there, I think we heard it all early on also from Commissioner Hansen, that he basically said it has to go hand in hand, sustainability and profitability. And you need to have also clarity on future, because I heard that also earlier on, Hansen saying, well, we can't change things too dramatically overnight because you have that to have that long-term clarity on where does it take us. A key driver of sustainability / linked with productivity is innovation. And we need to keep on driving that full toolbox and start also appreciating and recognizing that on the one hand side, we can't over-regulate and deplete a toolbox whilst we are not in a position to provide alternative solutions. And we also have mid to long-term potentially the challenge of to what extent is the innovation really then tailored towards farming practices in Europe. And if you look at the farming practices here, which is very much around fruits and vegetables, horticulture, it's different to the big row crops you have in the Americas, where it's more about corn and soy.
And when it comes to the priority, since both Elli and Théo actually, Théo have the right
I don't think I would put environment above farmers. I think they're both there. I would not put one above the other. For me, it's just that they cannot be profitable in a world where we're losing soil. Like 60 to 70% of soils in Europe are in poor health. So for me, they're not one above the other. It's just that they both need each other to actually thrive.
Okay. No, absolutely. Jens, your priority, your order of importance when it comes to the main topics.
Well, I think a starting point is the food security.
Food security.
That's a starting point because it drives then also the food production, drives the profitability of farmers, and you put everything else as on top. So it's basically addressing this almost like in parallel. You address the financial situation of farmers, you make their life easier, and you provide the constant toolbox and innovation going forward.
So how would you frame the innovation issue when it comes to agriculture?
Look, I think Hansen said it before, and Elli, you know this better than anybody else here in the room. The farmers are the biggest entrepreneurs we have on life. And if there is one group who's taking up innovation, if it really makes your life easier, or if it does a certain job, then it's been done. Yeah, and be it digitalization, be it biologics, or be it in other areas. Whenever a farmer sees an improvement in the outcome compared to what he has been doing before, he's taking up that innovation. But in general, and that's what also liked with Hansen saying at the beginning, we need to keep on making farming attractive, to attract the next generation of farmers also to continue their forefathers' work. And that younger generation automatically is also more prone towards new innovation coming in, such as digitalization.
There's also this social aspect, Theo, of not just generational renewal, but keeping this profession alive.
For us, when it comes to generational renewal, it's often about land price, and that's often has been driven by the prices have been driven up by the cap, a lot of times because of hectare-based payments. This has driven the price of land up. So for us, I think that this needs to be, let's say, dissociated from only having the hectare metric, because we need to make sure that young farmers, not just young farmers, new entrants, are able to access land. And this is one of the biggest barriers that they have to actually enter the profession.
Let's do a game. So your wish list for the next Common Agricultural Policy. What would be your wish list for the next EU farming subsidies program?
I will start from the budget. We need an adequate, increased, taking into account inflation budget. This is a meaningful policy. It has clear objectives, environmental, economic, societal, and we need to continue pursuing these objectives.
So what we are asking for is a ring fencing of significant funding for biodiversity, but that would be accessible, of course, also to farmers, because they represent a large part of the land that we have in Europe.
And Jens, your wish list, it doesn't have to be Common Agricultural Policy specific, it could also be agriculture.
And it's actually very short. It needs to be outcome-based, so in other words, incentivized, driven by incentivization. It needs to be simple. And it needs to really drive innovation, toolbox, and sustainable agriculture.
That's all from us. Thanks for watching these highlights. Let us know what you think about this event, and don't forget to keep watching Euronews.